this was a new one for me. I actually saw the ladies on The View starting to sound like they agreed with the White House Correspondence Association for getting rid of this crazy comedian. I don't know if you followed this story, but there's this woman, her name is Amber Ruffin. I had never heard of her before. She is the comedian that they hired to be at the White House Correspondence Dinner. Now, the White House Correspondence Dinner, I've been to it a few times over the years. It's really just kind of an annoying, like, who's who in media and Hollywood and blah, blah, blah. And they get up there and they usually have a comedian and everybody gets together. And the spirit of it was back when you didn't have a lot of access, say to the press, they would do this, or to the president. I guess we kind of had that in the Biden years. They would do this as kind of the thing to build camaraderie, et cetera. And it's just kind of ballooned into a Hollywood you-know-what show over the years, and is kind of a giant cluster, you-know-what. So anyway, it would have been really bad this year if they had gone forward with this woman. I want to show you what she's saying here. And it's almost like Kathy Griffin style. Like, she's really bad. She basically hates anybody who's MAGA. Okay, just know that. So I say this, she should come with a warning label. This is Amber Ruffin, who the White House Correspondents Association wanted to actually speak at their dinner. Are you kidding me? Like, hello.
I'm sure that I will at some point.
Well,
I know the news organizations that will be attending. I don't think the people confirm until quite a bit later. I don't necessarily, I'm not 100% interested in being like, ha, you're here. Look at your stupid head. You're burned. I care, you're kind of a bunch of murderers. I mean, so they were like, you need to be, equal and make sure that that you give it to both sides and blah, blah, blah. I was like, there's no way I'm going to be freaking doing that, dude. Under no circumstances. I think it's just that burns on Trump hurt badly. And then it trickles down to everyone who's around him. Because y'all also guilty. So I think they got their feelings hurt. And they want that false equivalency that the media does. They want that. It feels great. It makes them feel like human beings. But they shouldn't get to feel that way because they're not.
Excuse me? Okay, so the comedian that was supposed to speak at the White House Correspondents Association dinner said that MAGA people are murderers and not human beings. Like, she's not joking around there. This is actually how this woman actually feels. So you were going to have all the legacy media there with this woman who checked a lot of boxes, right? A woman and not white. So she's got all the boxes checked. I don't know what her sexuality is. I'm sure that's checked too, right? They had all the boxes checked. And then they realized at some point, maybe this isn't appropriate. Maybe this isn't a good look. It's not a good look for us. I mean, not when you get the FCC breathing down your back, right? Networks. Because the FCC still has some control over your airwaves and issues the licenses to all your affiliates. And by the way, you are 99.9% of the time always against Trump and 99.9% of the time always for Kamala or Biden. So what do you know? The View agrees with me, or at least one of them does. They're really highlighting her lately because you see, they're in a whole lot of trouble and they don't know what to do up a creek without a paddle.
It feels great. It makes them feel like human beings. But they shouldn't get to feel that way because they're not.
It's a funny thing. Free speech.
Yeah.
What do you think about the decision to drop her?
So at first I thought the White House Correspondents Association were being a bunch of cowards, but then I watched that. And the most important thing that journalists need to do in this moment is be able to show that they can objectively, without fear or favor, cover this administration. And objectively is the key word. And for a lot of Americans, when there's record high distrust in the media, if you have them sitting in a room with somebody who basically said, Trump administration officials are subhuman. There were a bunch of murders. It adds to distrust in the press. It comes off as a kind of a tacit endorsement of what she's saying. And I think it's an important event to highlight good journalism. My worry is without having a comedian altogether, that will fall by the wayside and fewer people will tune in.
Why would I go for the funny part?
I actually support the decision. And I worked with most of the people in the White House Correspondence Association. Eugene Daniels is a very serious journalist, and I think it was actually the prudent decision.
Okay.
Yeah. Like, duh, it was an obvious decision. Like, how is there any debate about this, ladies and gentlemen? It's like, you know, Disney flipping out because they got a Snow White actress that actually needs to appeal to the flyover states that she doesn't care about, Rachel Zegler, saying that you should rot in HELL for the rest of your life if you've been a MAGA supporter, that Trump should never know peace and his supporters should never know peace, along with a few bad words. So, like, I'm sorry, like, that's not a good look for the press. It's not a good look for Hollywood because America elected him. And guess what? America would elect him again. He won the popular vote and he won the entire electoral college. Guys, like, get this through your head. You are the ones that are out of touch. And so now they're kind of coming to this realization, and Disney's sort of realizing, oh boy, maybe we ought to listen, because you see, if we don't, there is this little thing called the FCC, and the FCC has now launched an investigation courtesy of Brendan Carr, who's looking at ABC News and The View and Disney overall for its discriminatory policies, like hugely discriminatory policies. That's what they did. That's what they did. Let me go to some of the things in his letter. You know, they had these racially segregated affinity groups. I know I've told you about this before if you tune in every single day, but this is a hot story, and this is an important story because the left is going to try and say that this is him going after the media in ways that are not fair. And I'm telling you, what the media did to him was not fair. What the media did to MAGA and to everyday Americans was not fair. And what these organizations did vis-a-vis their DEI, you know what? That was actually unconstitutional and against FCC rules. I mean, in other words, you can't discriminate against someone and not give somebody a job because somebody else has a certain skin color, which is exactly what was going on. I mean, you look at the inclusion standards across ABC requiring 50% or more of regular cast members to be drawn from underrepresented groups. Then you had, the forcing of racial and identity quotas at every level of production. That's been reported, with 50% or more writers, directors, crew, vendors being selected based on their group identity. This is a problem. What I love about what Brendan Carr is doing, though, he's going back and he's looking not just what's happening now, but what happened in the past. What happened in the past, because they did all kinds of things. Gina Carano lost her job because of this DEI nonsense. There was a lot of this going on, but I think that it's coming to realization there at Disney right now. They're figuring out, okay, we're in a lot of trouble, and so we're going to have to kind of reorient things, which is why after the election, all of a sudden Whoopi Goldberg, who told us that Donald Trump was going to round up gays and round up people of color and put them in camps. I mean, this is crazy, right? This is what she was saying. All of a sudden started to scale it back and said things like this.
I think what we're all saying is we're going to sit and watch. We're going to wait and see, because we can't do anything else except...
I'm not going to wait and see. I mean, this guy is told us he's a retribution. He's going to be a dictator.
What are you doing?
There's nothing to be done until you know what you're fighting. It's pissing in the wind doesn't help. You just get a wet face.
But what I'm saying is I have no false expectations that at 78 he's going to all of a sudden turn into another human being. And I'm not going to spend. I spent weeks telling people that he was apocalyptic. I'm not going to change now because it's still the same man.
Not treating every single thing like
I think that's when we lose credibility.
Well, here's the thing. You lose credibility in many different ways. If you don't know what you're talking about and you accuse him of something, then they're going to blow it back. That's why I say we need to wait and see exactly what you're going to do.
Well, she clearly got the memo. You see, they've had layoffs there, and they've sat her down, and they've said, we really need to actually think about our credibility. And Whoopi, let's be honest, you haven't helped it. So suddenly she's the voice of reason on The View. That has to do with one thing and one thing only. Ladies and gentlemen, she's worried about her paycheck, period. Okay, and there's nothing wrong with that. I get it. She's worried about her paycheck. She wants to make sure she stays employed. She wants to make sure that the show stays on the air, which, by the way, is pretty darn debatable right about now. So she's worried about the bottom line. But I think it's important to remember that because I think she's always just been worried about the bottom line. I don't think she's ever cared about anything other than the bottom line. So when she sat there and was saying all the other stuff, it's because it worked for her. For whatever reason, she was given license to do that and to be completely reckless, and it worked for her, and that's what she did. And now, well, maybe it's not working for her anymore. Unbelievable.